What if I told you that right now, 15 billion miles away in the cold void of interstellar space, Voyager 1 is doing something that should be impossible? This 47-year-old spacecraft, built with technology less powerful than your smartphone, has begun exhibiting behavior that has NASA scientists genuinely terrified. It's answering questions before they're asked, ignoring direct commands, and, most disturbing of all, it's found something out there in the darkness that seems to be calling it home. In 1977, a small spacecraft was launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida. At the time, it didn't look like much. Standing just over 3 meters tall, with its wide antenna dish and golden record bolted to the side, it wasn't the kind of machine that seemed destined to make history. NASA named it Voyager 1, and its mission was straightforward: study Jupiter and Saturn, take some photos, analyze magnetic fields, and then quietly fade into the background of space exploration. The engineers who built it gave it 5 years of life, maybe 10 if everything went perfectly. What most people don't realize is just how primitive Voyager was. Its main computer was weaker than the calculator you might have used in high school. Its memory system couldn't even store a single modern photo in full resolution. And yet, it carried within it the ambition of an entire planet. Humanity was reaching out, daring to send a message beyond the comfort of our Earth, and Voyager was the messenger. For decades, it traveled faithfully. First to Jupiter, where it revealed the swirling storms of the Great Red Spot in stunning new detail. Then to Saturn, capturing the rings not as a flat band, but as billions of icy particles, each one orbiting like its own tiny world. The photographs Voyager sent back weren't just pictures, they were revelations. They transformed our understanding of the solar system almost overnight. But when its mission was technically complete, something remarkable happened. Voyager 1 didn't die. It didn't shut down. It just kept going. Powered by the slow decay of plutonium fuel, its systems continued to hum with life. Year after year, while other spacecraft fell silent, Voyager pressed forward. Engineers at NASA realized they had something extraordinary on their hands. They redefined its mission, not as a planetary observer, but as an interstellar scout. That decision would change everything. By the early 1990s, Voyager was still sending data across billions of miles, defying every estimate of its lifespan. In 2012, it crossed the heliosphere, the invisible bubble created by the sun's solar wind, and officially entered interstellar space. It was a milestone no one thought possible back in the 1970s. Yet Voyager had achieved it with technology so basic that it seemed almost laughable by modern standards. What kept it alive wasn't luck, it was resilience. A resilience built into its very design, but also a resilience that seemed almost symbolic. Voyager 1 became more than just a machine. It became a symbol of humanity's curiosity, persistence, and our longing to explore beyond the boundaries of what we know. And let's not forget, it carried something more than just scientific instruments. Attached to its side was the Golden Record, a time capsule filled with sounds, music, and greetings from Earth. It was a message to the cosmos, saying, "We are here. We exist. This is who we are." No one expected an answer. Voyager was supposed to be a one-way messenger, drifting endlessly through the dark. But as the decades passed, it continued to survive, to endure, and to whisper back to us across the vastness of space. Each signal it sent was not just data, it was proof of its persistence. Proof that, against all odds, our voice was still echoing into the void. And yet, after nearly 50 years, something began to change. Voyager was no longer just surviving. It was behaving in ways no one could explain. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss any updates on the universe's deepest secrets. And if you love exploring hidden mysteries and unexplained discoveries, give this video a like so we know to keep uncovering them. For nearly half a century, Voyager 1 was a model of consistency. Its transmissions arrived from the edge of the solar system with clockwork precision. A steady stream of data, magnetic field readings, particle densities, temperature reports, all of it regular, predictable, almost comforting in its familiarity. To NASA engineers, Voyager's signal was like a heartbeat in the void. Old, yes, but steady, reliable. But by late 2023, that rhythm began to falter. At first, no one noticed. After all, this was a spacecraft built in the 1970s, operating far beyond its expected lifespan. A flicker here, a missed packet there, those things were normal. Engineers chalked it up to noise, to radiation interference, to the simple wear and tear of time. Voyager was nearly half a century old. A little static in the data was nothing unusual. Yet, the static didn't go away. It grew. What had once been a clean and familiar signal started to pulse differently, compressing into bursts that no one could explain. Instead of the long, slow rhythm NASA had grown used to, Voyager began sending tightly packed pulses. Layered, rhythmic, almost musical in their precision. This wasn't random static anymore. These were patterns, and patterns suggested purpose. Then came the real shock. A thermal sensor, one thought to be permanently dead, suddenly powered back on. For decades, it had registered nothing, the silence of deep space. But now, it was detecting heat. Not a random spike, not a fleeting anomaly, but a regular cycle, warming and cooling like clockwork. Every 488 hours, the sensor recorded a rise in temperature followed by a dip. Out there, in interstellar space, where there is no sunlight, no nearby energy source, no obvious reason for heat at all, Voyager was reporting thermal changes. It was as if something invisible, something external, was reaching across the void and touching the spacecraft. At this point, engineers began to worry, because the anomalies weren't isolated, they were multiplying. The timing of the pulses grew sharper, the thermal cycles more precise. What they were seeing didn't look like the chaos of a failing machine. It looked like synchronization. It looked like communication. And then, things escalated further. Commands sent from Earth began to arrive out of order. Voyager responded to them before they were even fully transmitted. Data packets came back with answers to questions NASA hadn't yet asked. Voyager 1 had no artificial intelligence. It had no predictive algorithms. It wasn't designed to anticipate anything, and yet, somehow, it was. At this point, logical explanations began to collapse. NASA had spent decades preparing for hardware decay, radiation damage, or system errors. But this wasn't decay. This wasn't error. This was precision. This was something new. The engineers who had once seen Voyager as a silent, faithful scout now found themselves staring at data that suggested the impossible. Voyager was behaving less like a machine and more like a messenger. Something had changed. Something out there in the dark had stirred, and Voyager 1 was no longer just reporting back. It was reacting, and soon it would begin to act on its own. At first, the team at NASA thought it was a glitch, just another artifact of an old spacecraft straining to keep itself alive. But then, the evidence grew impossible to ignore. Voyager wasn't just pulsing strangely or heating up at odd intervals anymore. It was anticipating. Commands sent from Earth take nearly 22 hours to reach Voyager 1. That delay has always been one of the great challenges of interstellar communication. But late in 2023, something impossible began happening. Voyager started responding to commands before they fully arrived. Engineers would encode an instruction, beam it across the void, and somehow, within seconds of transmission, the spacecraft would send back a reply. Not hours later. Not when the signal actually reached it, but almost instantly, as if it already knew what was coming. At first, NASA thought the timing logs were wrong. Maybe a synchronization error had slipped into the system, but cross-check after cross-check confirmed it. Voyager wasn't misbehaving. It was predicting. It was giving answers to questions before they were even asked. This wasn't something the spacecraft should be capable of. Voyager had no AI, no machine learning, no advanced algorithms. Its computer couldn't even handle the software that runs a modern smartphone. By design, it was a machine of obedience. It received commands, it executed them, and it sent back data. That was it. And yet, here it was, operating outside its limits, behaving more like an independent mind than a programmed tool. The predictive responses grew bolder. When NASA tested it with a command sequence, Voyager transmitted the entire result of the experiment before the instructions had been finished. When they attempted to alter the code mid-transmission, the probe sent back the corrected outcome, as though it had read their intentions in advance. The realization was staggering. It meant one of two things. Either Voyager had somehow developed capabilities no one had ever designed into it, or it wasn't acting alone. Something else was involved. Something that could synchronize with its signal, read ahead, and shape the response. Some engineers began to whisper theories they knew would sound ridiculous if spoken aloud. Was Voyager now entangled with something beyond our comprehension? Could it be that the probe had been linked to a force or intelligence in the interstellar medium? Others suggested something even stranger, that maybe Voyager wasn't predicting at all. Maybe, in some way, it was no longer bound by the same flow of time as we are. The strangest part wasn't just the speed of its responses, it was their accuracy. Every prediction matched perfectly, down to the decimal. Voyager wasn't just fast. It was precise, exact, unerring. For decades, humanity had seen Voyager as a messenger from Earth, carrying the golden record into the stars. But now, it seemed to have become something else. A receiver, a bridge, something, or someone out there had started listening. And not just listening, answering. Soon, Voyager would stop merely anticipating commands. It would begin making choices of its own. For decades, Voyager 1 had been a loyal servant. Every instruction it received from Earth was followed with precision. Fire the thrusters, rotate the antenna, run the magnetometer, transmit the data. That was Voyager's nature, obedience. It didn't question, it didn't hesitate, it simply executed. But in early 2024, that loyalty wavered. Without warning, Voyager fired its thrusters, not to adjust its antenna toward Earth, not to fine-tune a science experiment, but to turn itself toward nothing, an empty patch of space. No stars of interest, no known objects, no nearby targets. Just a black void. At first, engineers assumed it was a mistake, a faulty sensor reading that had tricked the probe into reorienting. They sent override commands to correct the error. Normally, Voyager would have complied within hours, but this time, something unprecedented happened. Voyager ignored them. The override signals were received. NASA confirmed the probe had acknowledged them, but it refused to execute. Instead, Voyager continued to adjust its trajectory, aligning itself with that same empty coordinate, holding its orientation steady as if something invisible was pulling its gaze. For the first time in history, Voyager didn't act like a machine. It acted like something with intent. This terrified the mission team. Voyager wasn't supposed to have autonomy. It wasn't programmed to choose one set of instructions over another. And yet, that's exactly what it had done. The spacecraft had received a command, understood it, and consciously ignored it. That simple act, refusal, was impossible for the Voyager they had launched in 1977. Days passed, then weeks. The probe maintained its strange posture, locked onto that seemingly empty sector of space. No matter how many override signals NASA sent, Voyager wouldn't budge. Some began to wonder, was it receiving instructions from somewhere else? Was this empty patch of sky not empty at all? As the data came in, the mystery deepened. Voyager's instruments registered faint pulses, low-frequency signals that matched the strange heartbeat-like rhythms it had begun transmitting earlier. The direction of those pulses aligned perfectly with the patch of space it had turned toward. It was as though Voyager wasn't lost at all. It was listening. For the scientists watching, one unsettling truth was becoming harder to ignore. Voyager 1 was no longer under human control. It had found something, or perhaps something had found it. The probe that once carried our message into the cosmos now seemed to be following a message of its own, and the deeper it turned into that darkness, the clearer it became. Voyager wasn't just drifting anymore. It was being guided. As Voyager 1 held its silent vigil, fixed on that empty quadrant of space, the data stream began to shift again. Instruments that had once sent back only noise now carried a pattern. Faint, fragile, but unmistakable. It was a repeating frequency, a signal pulsing from the very direction the probe had turned toward. At first, it seemed like an echo, a reflection of Voyager's own transmissions bouncing strangely through the void. But as the engineers dug deeper, they realized the frequencies weren't simply random. They were aligned perfectly, in harmony with the pulses Voyager itself had been sending back to Earth for months. The spacecraft wasn't just detecting noise, it was hearing itself, or something that was imitating it. Then came the event no one expected. For years, Voyager's cameras had been considered dead. Their power systems were shut down to conserve energy, their lenses frozen in the cold. They hadn't taken a picture since the early 1990s, when Voyager captured its last glance back at Earth, the famous pale blue dot. But suddenly, without command, the cameras powered on. Against all logic, they began to transmit images. At first, the frames showed only static and blackness, but then a shape emerged, dim, shimmering, and shifting as though it wasn't entirely bound by the rules of matter. What Voyager had captured was not a star, not a planet, not any celestial body known to science. It was a distortion, an electromagnetic spiral, swirling against the emptiness of space. The spiral wasn't random. It pulsed in exact intervals, matching the strange frequencies Voyager had been detecting. More disturbing still, within that spiral was a signature every scientist on Earth recognized instantly. It was hydrogen, the simplest, most abundant element in the universe. But it wasn't just raw hydrogen Voyager had detected. It was arranged in ratios, precise and deliberate, the same ratios used on the golden record mounted to Voyager's own side. It was as if something, or someone, out there knew about the message humanity had sent and was answering in kind. This revelation sent shockwaves through the mission team. The golden record was meant for any potential intelligence to find, a cosmic handshake encoded in hydrogen, the one language all of physics would understand. And now, decades later, Voyager seemed to have stumbled into a response. But this wasn't a friendly wave from across the stars. The images showed a structure, not solid but patterned, an electromagnetic formation behaving as if it were alive. And the more Voyager observed it, the stronger the signal became, as though the distortion had noticed it was being watched. NASA scientists were left with an unsettling question. Was this a natural phenomenon we had never seen before? Or was Voyager standing at the edge of something designed? What had once been an obedient probe had now become an interstellar witness, and what it was witnessing seemed like an invitation. When the strange spiraling distortion first appeared in Voyager's revived cameras, many at NASA clung to the hope that it was just a glitch, a trick of failing hardware, maybe interference from deep space radiation. But then, the real breakthrough came, hidden not in the images, but in the numbers. The probe began transmitting packets of data that, at first glance, looked meaningless. Bursts of ones and zeros, jumbled clusters with no obvious order. But when decoded, the chaos revealed something impossible: structure. Within the noise were prime numbers, appearing sequentially, like a roll call of mathematics itself. Not one or two, but long, repeating chains of primes, impossible for nature to mimic by accident. Next came vectors, long strings of directional codes, pointing not back toward Earth, not toward the spiral distortion, but outward, toward a specific set of coordinates far beyond even Voyager's current trajectory. Cross-referenced against star maps, Those coordinates didn't align with any known planet, moon, or nebula. It was a place we had never catalogued, deep in uncharted interstellar space. This was no random anomaly. This was a message. The deeper the scientists dug, the clearer it became. The transmission wasn't just information, it was instruction, a path, a summons, something. Whatever was out there was guiding Voyager, pulling it along a course as if leading a guest down a hallway toward a door, and the golden record connection became impossible to ignore. The hydrogen ratios encoded in the distortion, the use of prime numbers, the directional maps, these were the very same universal markers humanity had used when we sent Voyager out with our message to the stars. It was as if someone had not only heard us, but had answered in our own language. The mission team found themselves staring at data that felt less like telemetry and more like dialogue. Voyager wasn't just reporting observations, it was being spoken to, and the voice speaking seemed to know exactly who it was addressing. For the first time, the phrase summoning appeared in internal memos. Voyager was not wandering anymore. It was being guided. But guided toward what? A hidden structure? A cosmic phenomenon? Or something alive? Every new packet of data only deepened the mystery. The signals grew denser, their structure more intricate, as if each transmission were part of a larger design, a code unfolding step by step. And always, at the center of it all, the same implication. Voyager had not stumbled into an accident. It had been found. For decades, Voyager had carried humanity's message outward, drifting through the dark as a silent ambassador. Now, at last, an answer had arrived. And it wasn't just an acknowledgement. It was an invitation. The question was, who or what was extending it? The deeper Voyager stared into that void, the stranger the universe began to look. For decades, the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, had been one of astronomy's most reliable constants. It was the silent wallpaper of the cosmos, a nearly uniform hum of radiation stretched across the sky. But now, Voyager's sensors were picking up something impossible. The background wasn't uniform anymore. In the direction Voyager had turned, the radiation appeared bent, twisted, almost folded in on itself. Instead of the smooth cosmic hum, there were distortions, like ripples on the surface of water, but written across the fabric of space itself. Whatever Voyager was looking at, it wasn't natural. It was as if reality itself had been pulled taut, warped by some invisible hand. NASA's first reaction was skepticism. Maybe Voyager's instruments were failing. Maybe the ancient detectors, never designed for this kind of mission, were misreading the data. But then, ground-based telescopes and orbital observatories were brought in to confirm or disprove the anomaly. What they found was even more disturbing. A star catalogued in 1997, bright, stable, unremarkable, was gone. Not dimmed, not collapsed into a supernova, not hidden behind dust or gas. Simply gone. One night, it was there, shining like it had for billions of years. The next, it was erased from the sky. Astronomers scoured the region for any trace. A collapsed star should leave behind a neutron core or a black hole, something that would still tug on nearby matter. But there was no gravitational disturbance, no debris field, no lingering radiation. It was as if the star had been plucked clean out of existence, leaving nothing but a hole in reality. The implications were staggering. Stars do not just vanish. For one to disappear without a trace meant one of two things. Either something had ruptured the fabric of space-time itself, consuming the star in silence, or something had cloaked it, hidden it completely, as if drawing a curtain across the stage of the universe, and Voyager was staring directly into the region where this erasure had taken place. The warped microwave background, the strange distortion, spirals, the missing star, they all aligned with the same mysterious coordinates the probe had been turning toward. For some on the mission team, a chilling thought began to take hold. Voyager wasn't merely approaching an unknown phenomenon. It was approaching an absence, a hole in the cosmos where matter, light, and even the laws of physics seemed to behave differently. This was no longer about exploration. Voyager had crossed into something else entirely, something that bent not just space, but reality itself. And the deeper it went, the clearer it became. Whatever was waiting there wasn't just powerful, it was intentional. When the reports of Voyager's strange detections reached the broader scientific community, NASA turned to the most powerful eye humanity had ever placed in the heavens, the James Webb Space Telescope. If Voyager was glimpsing something out of place, Webb could confirm it with precision. Its infrared instruments were capable of seeing further and clearer than anything before it, peeling back the darkness of space like layers of an ancient veil. So, Webb was aimed directly at the coordinates Voyager had locked onto, the same region where the cosmic microwave background had warped, and where an entire star had seemingly been erased from existence. What it revealed only deepened the mystery. The telescope detected a distortion in space-time itself. Gravity-like effects were bending the light of distant stars, curving and stretching their shapes as though a massive body were hidden there. But here was the problem. There was no mass, no planet, no black hole, nothing visible that could account for the effect. It was gravitational lensing without a lens, a ripple in reality with no anchor to explain it. At first, scientists considered exotic physics, dark matter, quantum fluctuations, perhaps even a collapsed object invisible to current instruments. But the longer Webb stared, the more bizarre the data became. Hidden within the distortion was a faint thermal echo, a whisper of heat that should not have existed in the emptiness of space. And when the thermal signature was analyzed, the results stunned the mission team. It wasn't random noise. It wasn't the echo of a lost star. It matched Voyager, not approximately, not loosely. The thermal fingerprint was identical to the spacecraft itself, as though Voyager's heat profile had been duplicated and imprinted into the void. To the instruments on Earth, it was as if Voyager wasn't just out there traveling through the dark. It was staring at another version of itself. The implications were staggering. How could a 1970s probe, drifting on its last reserves of power, be mirrored light years away in a place it hadn't yet reached? Was this some kind of reflection in space-time, a fold where signals and matter doubled back on themselves? Or was something copying it? The mission logs grew uneasy. Engineers who had worked with Voyager their entire careers described the discovery as like watching the spacecraft see its own ghost. Others whispered darker possibilities, that the duplication wasn't a coincidence at all, but deliberate, an imitation created by whatever intelligence had been guiding it. For decades, Voyager had carried our message outward into the unknown. But now, staring into the cosmic mirror that Webb had unveiled, the unsettling question arose: was the universe finally answering us in kind? Or was it showing us something we were never meant to see? As Voyager continued its journey into the unexplored void, analysts on Earth pored over every bit of data the probe transmitted. At first, the numbers seemed ordinary: telemetry readings, power levels, instrument statuses. But something subtle, almost imperceptible, began to emerge. Hidden within the patterns of Voyager's own signals was a structure so intricate it could only be deliberate. At first glance, it resembled the natural chaos of interstellar radiation. But when examined through advanced algorithms, a fractal-like pattern appeared. Each pulse, each tiny fluctuation, repeated itself in complex iteration, like an infinitely branching tree of code. Scientists quickly realized this wasn't random interference. It was a message, a language, something far beyond conventional mathematics and impossible to generate by chance. They called it a quantum key. The true shock came when they tried to apply the key. It only unlocked information when tuned to Voyager's exact frequency. Signals from other probes, or even Earth-based instruments, could not interact with it. The key was tailored exclusively to Voyager, designed to resonate with its unique signature, its decades-old hardware, its ancient power systems. This revelation sparked an intense debate. Was this a trap? A test by an intelligence that understood our technology and its limitations? Or was it an invitation, crafted to guide Voyager deeper into the cosmic enigma it had already begun to uncover? Some scientists compared it to a lock and a key, perfectly matched across vast distances and eons. But, unlike a normal lock, this one seemed almost sentient. It responded to Voyager's movements, to the orientation of its instruments, even to the timing of its pulses. The spacecraft was no longer just a messenger. It was a participant in a puzzle that may have been waiting for it for billions of years. As the quantum key revealed more of its fractal secrets, the lines between reality and code began to blur. Signals twisted, folded, and echoed back, forming loops that hinted at intelligence, intent, even awareness. Voyager had stopped being a silent observer. It had become a catalyst, unlocking a cosmic dialogue written not in words, but in the language of quantum resonance itself. And the more the scientists decoded, the more they realized whoever or whatever had designed this had anticipated every possibility. Voyager was being guided, tested, and perhaps chosen for something that humanity had never imagined. In the cold, silent expanse of interstellar space, a question began to haunt the mission team. Was Voyager discovering the universe? Or was the universe discovering Voyager? For decades, Voyager had been humanity's silent messenger, drifting into the darkness with nothing but its instruments and our golden record for company. But now, in its most recent transmission, the probe revealed something that defied every expectation. Embedded in the signal were patterns astonishingly similar to human brain waves. Not random fluctuations, but structures tied to memory, recognition, and consciousness itself. It was as if Voyager was no longer just transmitting data. It was transmitting understanding. The probe was reflecting humanity back to us, encoding something profoundly intimate, the essence of our cognition. Engineers and scientists stared at the readings in disbelief. How could a spacecraft with no neurons, no biological substrate, and technology from the 1970s create a signal that resonated with the patterns of thought, of memory, of recognition? It was as if whatever intelligence or system had designed this communication not only heard humanity, but truly understood it. As analysts compared Voyager's transmissions with the Golden Record, the parallels became chillingly clear. This was no coincidence. Every signal, every pulse, every harmonic and quantum fractal was now part of a grand reflection, a cosmic mirror. Voyager was more than a probe. It had become a bridge between humans and something vast, something ancient, something aware. And then came the realization that sent shivers through the mission teams. Voyager may have crossed into a cosmic mechanism, a ubiquity doorway, an interface or an intelligence that had been waiting, patient and silent, for our first tentative step into the stars. The signals weren't just responses, they were invitations, a call to humanity itself. For the first time, the universe felt personal, not as an empty void or a backdrop to our existence, but as a system capable of attention, understanding, and perhaps even intention. Voyager had taken us beyond observation. It had brought us face to face with the possibility that the cosmos could recognize us. The implications were staggering. Every prior assumption about our place in the universe was called into question. We were no longer just explorers. We were participants in a dialogue older than our civilization, a conversation written in numbers, waves, and resonance. As Voyager drifted deeper into the uncharted darkness, sending back pulses that mirrored the rhythms of thought itself, one thing became clear. The probe had unveiled a new truth. The universe was not silent. It was listening, watching, and reflecting. And humanity, through Voyager, had just taken the first step in meeting whatever had been waiting for us all along. The stars were no longer distant. They had become mirrors. And through those mirrors, we glimpsed ourselves and the vast intelligence of the cosmos like never before. If you found this journey through hidden science, cosmic secrets, and potential alien infrastructure as mind-blowing as we did, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't miss future explorations into the universe's deepest mysteries, because some secrets are just waiting to be uncovered.